The front doors of La Riviere, Dublin's most exclusive fine dining restaurant, swung open with a quiet elegance. Inside, crystal chandeliers cast a soft golden glow over tables draped in pristine white linens. Guests sipped from delicate wine glasses, their conversations hushed and refined, the kind of place where money whispers and ordinary people don't dare walk in without a reservation made months in advance. Behind the host stand stood Clive, the restaurant's longtime maitre d', a man who considered himself more than just a greeter. He was a gatekeeper. His job, in his mind, was to protect the restaurant's image from being tainted by the wrong kind of clientele. That's when the front door opened again. In walked a man, alone, confident, shoulders back, head high, but dressed in a way that made Clive's nose wrinkle instantly. Ripped jeans, white sneakers, a black hoodie slightly stretched at the wrists. Not exactly the look of someone who belonged at La Riviere. The man removed his sunglasses, tucking them into his pocket, and approached the stand. His swagger was undeniable, but it was the kind of swagger Clive associated with loud football fans or men who bragged about their sports cars outside pubs. "Evening," the man said, his Dublin accent unmistakable. "Table for one, please." Clive's lips pressed into a thin line. He gave the man a slow, deliberate once-over from head to toe, like someone inspecting a stain on a silk tablecloth. "I'm afraid we're fully booked," Clive said, his tone polite but sharp enough to cut. The man raised an eyebrow. "Really? Not even a seat at the bar?" Clive shook his head. "This isn't that kind of place, sir." Now other diners had started to glance over, sensing something unfolding. A woman in pearls raised her glass of Chardonnay, eyes narrowing with curiosity. Clive wasn't done. "We have a strict dress code here," he added, the corners of his mouth twitching upward. "Tracksuits and trainers don't exactly fit the atmosphere." For a brief moment, there was silence. The man smiled, slow, calm, like a lion watching a mouse brag. "No worries," he said easily. "I'll see you soon." Then, with no further argument, he turned and strolled right back out the door, hands in his hoodie pockets, whistling softly as he walked into the Dublin night. Clive smirked triumphantly. Another riffraff rejected. What Clive didn't know, what no one inside La Riviere knew, was that they had just kicked out Conor McGregor. And by this time tomorrow, the man they refused to serve would own the entire place. As Conor pushed open the door and stepped back into the cool Dublin night, the maitre d', Clive, stood taller, shoulders back, chin high, the kind of posture a man wears when he thinks he's just done something important. He adjusted his cufflinks, the faintest smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth, fully aware that half the restaurant had been watching the exchange. To him, Conor was just another loudmouth. Nobody who thought charm could buy his way into a place built for a more refined class of people. At a table near the window, a middle-aged couple whispered to each other, the woman peering over her shoulder to watch Conor walk away. "Who does he think he is?" the man muttered into his wine glass. "Probably a footballer," the woman scoffed, "or one of those YouTube lads, the type that thinks money can buy class." Clive, hearing every word, smiled to himself. In his mind, he had done his duty, preserving the restaurant's reputation, keeping out anyone who might lower the tone. He turned back to his reservation book, already forgetting the man in the hoodie. But outside, as Conor walked down the street, hands still tucked in his pockets, that smile on his face slowly shifted. It wasn't embarrassment. It wasn't anger. It was a challenge accepted. Because if there was one thing Conor McGregor knew how to do, it was flip the script. And Clive? Clive had just made the biggest mistake of his career. Conor strolled down the cobbled streets of Dublin, the cold air biting at his face, but he barely felt it. That smug little maitre d', the snobby whispers, the judgment, it all played over in his mind like a highlight reel. But instead of getting angry, Conor did what Conor always does. He laughed. Pulling out his phone, he scrolled through his contacts until he found the name he needed. His investment manager. A man whose job wasn't just to handle Conor's fortune, but to jump when Conor said, "Jump." The phone rang twice before the groggy voice answered. "Boss, it's after midnight." "Good." Conor grinned. "You're awake. I need you to buy something for me." "Okay. What?" "La Riviere," Conor said, his voice dripping with amusement. "The restaurant? Wait, what? That's one of the most exclusive places in Dublin." "Not exclusive enough," Conor said. "They turned me away. Apparently my hoodie wasn't refined enough." His investment manager groaned softly, already knowing where this was going. "Conor, you can't just buy it." Conor cut him off. "Call whoever you need to. I want the papers signed before breakfast." There was a long pause on the line. "You're serious?" "Dead serious," Conor said. "And make sure they know I want full control. New policies, new dress code, everything." The manager sighed. "I'll start the calls." "And one more thing," Conor added, his grin returning. "Make sure they leave that little prick of a maitre d' on the schedule for tomorrow night." While the rest of Dublin slept, Conor McGregor's money moved fast. By dawn, lawyers had drafted the paperwork. By mid-morning, offers were made, and by early afternoon, the deal was done. La Riviere, once the proud home of exclusive wealth and uptight snobbery, now belonged to the man they had kicked out for dressing wrong. Conor didn't just want to eat there. He wanted to own the whole damn place. The evening rush at La Riviere had just begun. The same velvet ropes were out front, the same overpriced cars lined the street, and inside, Clive stood at his post, back straight, polished smile in place. Another night of judging guests like it was a sport. Clive adjusted his cufflinks, already imagining the compliments he'd get from regulars for maintaining the restaurant's standards. To him, gatekeeping was an art, and he considered himself a master. Then, the door swung open. In walked a man, this time in a perfectly tailored three-piece suit, shoes gleaming, pocket square crisp, and a Rolex that caught the chandelier light with every step. But it wasn't the outfit that made Clive's breath catch in his throat. It was the face. Conor McGregor, the same man he had turned away just 24 hours earlier. Clive froze, hands suddenly clammy, his rehearsed welcome dying in his throat. Good evening, sir." Conor flashed that familiar wolfish grin. "Evening, Clive." The fact that he knew his name made Clive even more uneasy. So good to see you again." Clive stumbled, trying to recover. "If you're here for a table, I'm sure we can find." Conor held up a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "Don't strain yourself," Conor said. "I already have a table." Clive blinked. You do?" "Aye." Conor leaned slightly over the host stand, lowering his voice so only Clive could hear. "Because I own the whole bloody place now." Clive's face drained of color. I beg your pardon?" Conor clapped his hands together loud enough to make nearby diners look over. "That's right, folks. Yours truly here is the new owner of La Riviere." Gasps rippled through the restaurant, forks pausing mid-air, conversations cut off in shock. Conor turned back to Clive, who looked like he might pass out. Now, about that dress code you're so fond of. Conor ripped off his suit jacket, pulled open his shirt to reveal a Dublin football jersey, and swapped his polished loafers for a pair of scuffed sneakers he had stashed in his bag. "Tracksuits and trainers, welcome," Conor shouted, arms wide open. "From now on, anyone can eat here, as long as they come hungry and bring good crack." The restaurant erupted in cheers, customers laughing, clapping, some already ordering more drinks to toast the new era. Clive stood there, speechless, as Conor leaned in one final time. "Pack up your things, lad," Conor said, voice low and sharp. "Because your services no longer required." Clive's face burned red, humiliation sinking deep into his bones as Conor turned his back on him, the ultimate insult. The once stuffy dining room of La Riviere transformed overnight into something wildly different, a place no one had ever imagined it could become. Gone were the silent diners sipping overpriced wine and inspecting their plates like art pieces. In their place were locals, fans, fighters, and old friends of Conor, pouring pints, sharing laughs, and filling the air with the kind of energy only Dublin knows how to bring. The velvet ropes, gone. The ridiculous dress code, gone. The menu, once filled with dishes no one could pronounce, had been replaced with proper Irish comfort food: shepherd's pie, fish and chips, beef stew, and a whiskey list long enough to stretch to Belfast. Conor stood at the center of it all, pint in one hand, microphone in the other, dressed in a full tracksuit and sneakers, exactly the outfit that had gotten him kicked out the night before. The crowd roared as he raised his glass. "Ladies and gentlemen," Conor grinned, "welcome to McGregor's." Another eruption of cheers shook the walls. "To Clive," Conor shouted, "wherever he is tonight, may his next job involve a lot less judging and a lot more humility." Laughter roared through the room as someone shouted, "To Clive's tracksuit fund," and half the bar nearly spilled their drinks laughing. Conor's voice lowered slightly, and the room quieted just enough to hear him. "But seriously," he said, raising his glass higher, "this is for everyone who's ever been told they didn't belong. Every lad and lass who's been looked down on because of what they wore, where they're from, or how they talk. This is your place now." The room erupted again, glasses clinking, hands pounding on tables, Dublin pride flooding the room. Conor's smile widened. "You can wear a suit, a tracksuit, a clown suit. I don't give a damn," he said. "Long as you come in with a good heart and an empty stomach, you're always welcome at my table." With that, the DJ cranked up the music, and the biggest party La Riviere had ever seen officially kicked off. As Conor danced, fans swarmed to take selfies, the cameras flashing as fast as the pints poured. And somewhere, miles away, Clive was probably nursing a pint of his own, alone, watching the viral videos flood his phone, a painful reminder of the day he tried to kick out the King of Dublin. Because in this city, there's one rule everyone should know: never bet against McGregor.